going on, guys? So it's that time of the month again. The best decks of the PvP are concerned. If you're trying to climb that PvP ladder, be the next king of games. These are some decks to consider, maybe not consider, because of where they're at on this tier list. I guess we could start actually right there in the King of Game worthy decks. Red Eye Slash and Bujin from the new mini box that was just released. I've been playtesting Bujin out a little bit. I'm not a super big fan of it, simply because there's not enough Beast Warrior Bujins out there. I think unless the deck gets some of the better Bujin cards like Bujin Turtle, Bujin Crane, I don't really think the deck's going to be very good. It goes from Tier 4 all the way up to Tier 1. The first tier we're going to talk about is Tier 4. Parasite Infestation, probably my least favorite deck to face online. I think Nephthys is interesting that it's here. I think the only reason it's starting to slip is just because some of the other Tier 3 decks are pretty good against it. And, really, if you look at the top tier decks, a lot of them don't really run a lot of back row, and that's what Nephthys is really good against. It's really good against back row heavy decks. Now we get to Tier 3, Volcanics, Dark Worlds, Control, Dinosaur. I personally think Ancient Gear, which is sitting there at the top of that spot, personally think Ancient Gear is Tier 2. I think Ancient Gear, if the pilot knows what he's doing, you could honestly argue the same about Dark Worlds. From what I've seen of the Dark World deck and what I've seen of Ancient Gears, I think those are very good decks. And if you're trying to climb, maybe become the king of games, and you have a lot of the Dark World and Ancient Gear decks, now is the best time to build an Ancient Gear deck because of the Crowder event that's going on in Duel Links. So now like I said, now literally is the best time to build Ancient Gears. But up next is the Tier 2, and this is where it kind of gets weird because this is it. This is it for the Tier 2. It's the Hazy Flame deck. Just take a look at this list real quick. It's a real simple list. Both these lists are the same. The only difference between the second list rather than the first list has Mirror Wall in it. The second list has 3 Soul Exchange. That's the only difference. I'm a more fan of the first list. That's why we're going to talk about it for a little bit. But it's real simple. You summon Centaur. You send Hazy Flame Sphinx if he gets attacked. If he doesn't get attacked, you attack with him. Send Hazy Flame Sphinx. Even if he dies, you're still kind of doing what you need to do. You summon on Hazy Flame Sphinx, activate its effects. Summon on, the other Hazy Flame Sphinx that should already be in the graveyard. All these monsters are fire. Soul Exchange is a good card. Enemy Controller can take your opponent's monster and tribute it off to deal with, if you can't deal with an Ancient Gear Golem, for example. For me, this is super straightforward. I'm trying to summon out Centaur early game, and I'm trying to summon out Sphinx mid to late game, and I'm just trying to win off that. And these decks, I feel like have been Tier 1 for a while, except for at least the Glad Beast. They've all been very good decks. Just taking a look at these two decks, I like that the Gladiator Beast did a budget version of this as well, because this card is a super rare, so you would have to reset your packs and reset them all up like that. I'm not sure if I would run half shot if I didn't have to. I'm not the biggest fan of half shot. I'm not sure if I'd run Curse of Anubis and Windstorm of Edequa and 3 enemy controller. That feels like it's a bit much. If you're trying to figure out how to counter this deck, the best way to counter this deck, here's the thing, actually a pretty decent, it's a pretty hard deck to counter because it does do so many different things so well. But if you're trying to figure out how to counter this deck, probably the best way to do it is just to attack it right at it. Anti-Magic Arrows is a really good card against this deck, because you just take a look at all these cards that they're running. They're not running any real powerful cards that are trying to further the game state. They're running, defensive cards like Impediment Patrol Attack and Floodgate Trap Hole. So if you could play around their back row and, storm their field or something like that, I think that definitely this deck loses to that, but the other two decks definitely do not. This is like the stun meta Tier 1 deck, and the other two are not, in my opinion. Zombie Spirit. So this deck has been very good for a very long time. You could probably get away with running a second Sergeant Electro. Bacon Saver is a spicy one, but it's super simple. You activate Red Eye's Insight, you get the Zombie Engrave, you go get Red Eye Spirit, and even if your opponent has literally anything for that, you just summon out the Red Eye Spirit again. That was one of my personal favorite skills in the game. Now, getting to if you're trying to figure out how to counter this deck, if you haven't noticed, doesn't really have an inherent out to a monster that's bigger than a Red Eye Zombie Dragon. If you're trying to beat this deck, probably the best way to beat it is either find a way to negate the Red Eye Spirit or just summon a monster that's just too big for this deck to get over, and that's usually going to work. And a deck that's really good at doing that is Cyber Angels. Now this is definitely the version I would run if I was trying to run the most competitive version possible. Now this version is really hard to get a hold of, if because you have 3 Senjus, which are ultra rares, 3 Saphirs, which are ultra rares. The Cyber Angel part of it's not super hard to get a hold of. And honestly, it probably does need to get hit again. Probably, if Benton went to 1, I don't really see how this deck could still function. Maybe you just start seeing Sonic Bird be ran more in here. Cyber Angels, if you're looking for a deck that can be fairly free to get to King of Games, and you have a lot of access to monies, you're going to end up getting a lot of the Galactic Origin, because that's where Saphira came from, and Neo Impact, because that's where Senju came from, if you missed out on the reprint. So before I end the video, I just want to talk about other popular decks. I'm just going to try to zoom by this. Silent Magician I'm a big fan of because the level 8 monster is really strong. XYZ Machines, I think, got a little bit better because of the release of Tides of the Brethren. Worm is one of my favorite decks just because it's super easy to get a hold of that. Massive Morph, Amazoness, any Massive Morph deck is just really strong. Relinquish, Horus, those are 2 really strong decks. Gem Knights, Ninjas, Jurix, those are decks that I've actually seen play in like the upper tiers back and forth. But overall, let me know what you guys think. Do you think Cyber Angels need to get hit again? Do you think Red Eyes needs to get hit again? Both those decks have both seen limitings and semi-limitings. Both those decks are still very, very strong and very, very consistent. So do they need to get hit again is the question I ask to you. And what deck do you play when you play Duel Links? And is that the deck? Is that the next best deck? The format, everybody's going to be playing that. Keep in mind that these these tier lists are released every month on the 18th of the month. So if you want to get ahead of the curve, March 18th, this list will be ready to go for the month of March. I'm telling you, Aromages is a really good deck. I'm telling you, it's going to be in the tier list. I can feel it already. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you click that like button, click that subscribe button for even more Yu-Gi-Oh content. Most importantly, guys, have a good day.